Good morning. It's Tuesday, November 5th, and this is Grover Reads the News. Today we have news about the U.S. election, global conflicts, U.S. climate, and tadpoles. If you're listening to the full version, don't forget you can skip forward 15 and 30 seconds on most devices. I hope your coffee's hot, your tea is just like you need it, and with that, let's read the news. In U.S. election news, we have information about security preparations for voting day today. Throughout the country, local officials are taking elaborate measures to fortify election-related sites, including plans for snipers on a rooftop to protect a key vote-counting headquarters, panic buttons for election workers, and surveillance drones. Nevada and Washington have activated the National Guard in case of unrest. NPR's James Dubek reports the announcements come after ballot drop boxes in Portland, Oregon, and nearby Vancouver, Washington were set on fire last week. A few ballots were damaged in the Portland drop box fire, and the fire damaged hundreds of ballots in the Vancouver box. In an NPR News/Marist poll released on Monday, 72% of likely voters said they were concerned about violence as a result of the election. The final polls close in Alaska at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today. This story was reported by James Dubek for NPR News. In global conflicts, we have a report on Israel and Gaza. The Washington Post reports earlier this week that Palestinian detainees in Gaza were used to shield Israeli forces from attack. Palestinian civilians and Israeli soldiers say. For 2 weeks in late July and early August, 20-year-old Muhammad Saad said he and 2 other Palestinian men were forced by Israeli army unit in Gaza to enter buildings feared to contain explosives and to photograph every inch before troops were given the all-clear to enter. The use of civilians as cover for military is a war crime under Israeli and international law. In northern Gaza, at least 50 children were killed in Israeli strikes Friday and Saturday, and a UN official said the entire population is at, quote, imminent risk of dying. The Biden administration on Monday pressed Israel to take additional steps to increase the flow of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, more than 3 weeks after the United States warned it would consider restricting weapons transfers to Israel if more assistance did not enter Gaza soon. This story was reported by Louisa Lovelock, Hajar Harb, and John Hudson at the Washington Post. We now have U.S. domestic news about drought. The New York Times reports almost the entire United States faced drought conditions during the last week of October. In a record, all but 2 states are in drought. Only Alaska and Kentucky did not have at least moderate drought conditions, according to the U.S. Drought Monitor, a record in the monitor's history. The past 4 months were consistently warmer, and not much rain has fallen across the eastern U.S. after Hurricane Helene. Dr. Agarwala said, in general, climate change is making all weather patterns more extreme. While the Northeast is likely to get wetter, we are also at a great likelihood of shorter, more extreme droughts like the one we may be in right now. Dr. Fleischman said larger-scale adaptations around infrastructure, agriculture, and water policy have greater effects on water use. In the West, for example, municipalities are creating financial incentives for people to minimize residential water use by buying lower-flow appliances or replacing landscaping with drought-resistant coverings. The story was reported by Austin Gaffney and Mira Rajunoskul in the New York Times. In animal news, we have some news about ancient tadpoles. Scientists in Buenos Aires found a fossilized tadpole the size of a hot dog. On Wednesday, Dr. Mariana Culliver and her colleagues in Buenos Aires, Argentina, announced the discovery of a 161-million-year-old fossilized tadpole, the oldest yet found. More than that, this tadpole was long enough to fit in your typical hot dog bun. The find is related to a close relative of our contemporary frogs and was described Wednesday in the journal Nature. Most tadpoles are smaller than adult frogs, Dr. Culliver said, while a few species, like South America's paradoxical frog, began as a large tadpole before developing into small adults. This tadpole, however, was the same length as one of the adult frogs. That feature is really hard to find in nature today, Dr. Chulliver said. Such a big size is probably because the tadpoles had no food competitors in the seasonal ponds, so food resources were available for these tadpoles to grow indefinitely. The most notable feature of the find, however, was the tadpole's gill system, which is used to filter food particles out of the water, as is the case with modern tadpoles. We now know this filter feeding system was present since the beginning of the group, Dr. Chulliver said, adding that the gill system is still found in over 6,000 species of tadpole frogs today. Thanks for joining me today to read the news. Until next time, be well. Thanks for joining me today to read the news. We don't have to do it alone. We can do it together. Until next time, be well.